Stop.
I get those goosebumps every time, yeah, 713. The 21, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, rider. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. You come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, we can throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Off the mics. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC. We are back again, the full early transfer show. As this evening, we welcome Ben Jacobs to the channel to talk all things Newcastle United. And Ben Jacobs will be on with us at 6:15. So make sure you're here for that. And we can see plenty of you streaming in to the chat, ready to talk all things Newcastle United. And there's still more news popping out every day with regards to transfers and players potentially coming in, players potentially going out. We're going to discuss it all. But first of all, main man, Chris Hall, how are you doing, fella?
All good, mate. Yeah, busy. That's all I ever say, isn't it? Busy day in work. But yeah, really busy day in work. But been really looking forward to the show tonight. Really looking forward to having Ben on as always. It'll be good to get a little bit of insight as to what's going on, because there's been a few conflicting stories in the past few days. So to get a bit of clarity on it would be really good. But yeah, on a personal note, mate, I'm absolutely fine. Still loving life in Birmingham. How are you doing, mate? How are you? How's things with you?
Not too bad. Just like I say, chilling with the family. When we went cinema today, I had a good time watching some kids' films with the little ones, and yeah, nice and chilled. Can't lie. Keep trying to keep an eye on all things Newcastle United, but at times I do kind of just step away and not hog the social media too much. Jump in when I can, but yeah, there has been some news today, and we're definitely going to get into that because things are moving fast. And look, we've got 2.5 weeks left of this window, and so it is something that we're going to have to move on with, and it's probably a question we're going to come into later on in the show. But I've kind of got a question to ask you off the back of that. Maybe once we've done these shout outs, I'll ask you the question, mate. We'll get into it. But of course, we didn't do it last night. We're going to do it tonight. The Tunes, everybody in the house. So Steve's in there with the Tunes. Great to have you in the show. Bill, of course. Bill is always in there. Great to have you with us. Dominic, welcome in. We've got Migs S. Great to have you back in again. Familiar face in the house. Naz, great to have you in there from sunny Spain. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good holiday. Andrew, great to have you with us, along with John. We've got Joe in the house too. Geordie Tune for Life, of course, always in and around. And Dutch Mag, great to have you with us. Jamie, brilliant to have you in the chat, as always. Paul, great to have you with us, as well as Key. Jamie again, so good, he did it twice. And he's gone all out with the Tunes. I love it. N9NE, Jimmy, and we've got Will in the house too. We've got a few more. I think we've got James. Welcome, James. We've got Stephen. Don't think I've seen the chat. No. So great to see you in there. Glad that you've joined us. Daniel as well, and of course, we've got William Smith as well. Thank you for all your tunes. We really, really appreciate it. And look, let's get down to it, because there's a question that I've asked you a couple of times. I'm going to ask you again. I think you know where we're going with this.
I might, yeah.
So my question for anyone that's not watched the previous shows this week and the previous week, because I asked you and Daz initially, and then I asked you again on Monday, I believe. If Paul Mitchell doesn't get this over the line with Mark Gay, does that reflect badly on him? And the reason why I asked that is because this will be his first major transfer that he's negotiating since he took the role of sporting director. This is not my opinion. This is just a question that I'm putting out there, because this is his first big negotiation that he's done since he joined the club. So I'm going to ask you again, Chris, will this reflect badly on Paul Mitchell? Will he be seen in a negative light? Not necessarily with Newcastle fans, but the outside media and other fan bases. Will they question mark Paul Mitchell if he doesn't get this done? What are your thoughts on that, mate?
To be fair, mate, it's a great question. I mean, I know you've asked us this a number of times, and it kind of feels, I feel like a bit of a fraud, really, because I mean, the opinion kind of changes every so often when you ask. I mean, I'm gonna stick broadly to what I said, in that I think it reflects badly on him unless he takes very severe action. I think if this Mark Gahey deal doesn't happen, or we have to walk away from the Mark Gahey deal, and let me put this out there now, Pete, and say, for me, I don't want to be overpaying for players. We've said from the start, haven't we, that if a player's got a price, that's the value. Now, when I say overpaying for players, I don't mean if we're squabbling over 2, 3, 4, 5 million. I don't mean that. But say we go for a £40 million player and the club want 80, I don't expect us to pay double or something like that. I think if you've got to eke a few extra million, I think you go out and get the deal done. Yeah. But on the other hand, a player has a certain value, and what we don't want to do is overpay and then later on regret the deal. I mean, in the instances of Alexander Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, Sven Botman, we probably paid. Well, now it looks like a great price, doesn't it? Because the players of all three have turned out absolutely brilliantly. Anthony Gordon was a dodgy one for me. Anthony Gordon was one where I wasn't wholly convinced by him. I know a few people were, but for me, I did feel like I felt like that was the ceiling limit. It turns out, even if we paid 60 million, it would have been a good deal at the end of the day, because now I think he is worth at least 80 million to us if we were to let him go. But I'm kind of skirting around the answer here, aren't I, Pete? But I think that Paul Mitchell, he's got to be strong. That would be my message. He's got to be strong. If he doesn't decide to go through with this deal and doesn't decide, to kind of match what Palace wants, he needs to then go out and act accordingly. Like, I think he's got to go in and go, right, option number 2, go get them. And we get the deal done. We know that time's running out. I mean, I'm looking now at the date on the laptop, and I'm thinking, we've got just over 2 weeks left. Like, time is running out. And what we don't want is to leave Eddie Howe with a squad that isn't capable to compete on all fronts, where we're all just anxiously looking, like the Bruno situation last season. We're all anxiously looking at one player and thinking, oh God, hope he doesn't get injured. And if that player was Fabian Schär, that would make it even more, hair-raising, because most games Fabian Schär picks up a knock, or he hobbles off, or he goes off injured for a few minutes, then comes back on. That would be tense, because I think if we were to try and wait around for Sven Botman, I think it's a massive risk. And also, we don't want to rush him back too soon. So getting that centre-back in is key. And I think as well, there is an opportunity for him to kind of, in my opinion, get that kudos back. Because let's say our first choice right winger is out there, and then we go big on him. Very, very quickly, we would forget about Mark Gahey. if we didn't sign him, if we signed an alternative, and then people may go, I wouldn't have gone for him, or he's not as good as Mark Gay, but then we go out and sign a world-class right winger or a top level right winger, and that will all be forgotten. But he's got to act quickly, and he's got to make sure that people come through the door. Yes, we don't want to just sign anybody, but at the same time, it's acknowledged, that we do need at least 2 through the door in that centre back and right wing position. And albeit I don't want to pay 2 over the odds, I also don't want to end up like we were last season, where we're just panicking over players staying fit or dreading anyone, getting suspended or anything like that. So it's a fine line. But for me, Pete, I don't think Mark Gahey's the be-all, end-all. Yes, I'd like him. Yes, I think he's a really fantastic centre-back, and I know we'll touch on his interview a bit later on. I think he would be a good fit at the club, but equally, I don't want to be paying 75. I've made that figure up, but I don't want to be paying silly prices for them. I want us to get a good deal for them, and I want Palace to hopefully acknowledge the fact that he has only got 2 years left on his deal. This is going to be the premium price to pay for Mark Gahey. So I get why they want the best possible price, and I get why Palace is coming out and doing these interviews and putting a bit, almost, hitting the ball back to us, putting it in our court. But we've got to be very, very careful, because if we go in all guns blazing and get the deal done, which might be good, I just don't want us to look back and go, I feel like we've overpaid 15-20 million there. And that's what I think we need to avoid, particularly with these PSR issues that we've got nowadays. What about you, Pete? What about you?
Look, from my perspective, I think he does need to get a big signing over the line, not necessarily Mark Gahey. I do think for him overseeing an important role in the club, he needs to hit the ground running. He doesn't necessarily need to get the Mark Gahey deal, but he needs to get a deal done, which I believe he will. However, just for clarity, okay, we put it on the channel the other day. I took it off our system now. There's a lot of people on social media that are now saying that Palace wants 70 million for Mark Gahey. I don't see that. There was one guy from BBC that reported that Palace wanted 70 million. Every other reporter has made it clear for the last nearly 2.5 weeks now that Palace wanted 65 million. That for me hasn't changed. Where the 70 millions come from, and I'm not referring to what you said, Chris, I'm just saying from what I've seen on socials, nowhere else has it been reported 70 million. It's 65 million. We're currently at the point where we've offered 55 plus 5. So we're at the 60 million all-in mark. So it seems to me that there's a 5 million difference in valuation. Now, I said, we should be making the deal and making it done. I put that out yesterday. It's not just as easy as that, but I'm not in the boardroom, so I can make that comment and I can make that flippantly, and it's okay for me to do that. But I'm not in the boardroom making that type of deal done. And to be fair, 5 million isn't an easy valuation. It is they've got to try and make it work, and it is something that they have to negotiate with. But they're closer, I think, than what people realise to hitting that valuation. But we're in a position now where we need to make a decision. We've got 2 weeks left, or 2.5 weeks left. We need to make a decision. I want to know very, very quickly, before I just come through some comments that people have made. In your opinion, Chris, and people in the chat put this as well, what is your realistic value of Mark Gahey? So just really quickly, what is your realistic value of Mark Gahey?
Take it into account the situation with his contract and everything.
Yeah.
Me personally, I wouldn't go over 60 million. I think 55 rising to 60, which is what we're led to believe was the third offer. I think that's a fair offer. I genuinely do. Looking at the other transfers that have been made previously, I think that's about right. Because let's be honest, if Mark Gahey had 4 or 5 years left on his deal, you'd probably be talking closer to the 65, 70 million mark. I think you've got to take into account a little bit of a reduction. And the fact that we're led to believe that Mark Gahey's keen on the move. So for me, I think 55 rising to 60. I think it's a genuinely fair offer.
Yeah, I think so too. I said exactly the same. 60 million should have really got the deal done, in my opinion. We have to take into consideration, and to be fair, a few people have put 50 million, 55 million in there, just going through. Jimmy's put 60 max, and N9 has put something similar, the bid that we've put in now. We have to take into consideration that Chelsea get 20%. I do believe without that 20% that Chelsea get as part of that deal, I do believe we could probably have got him for cheaper. I think Palace wouldn't have asked for as much. I think they want a certain ballpark figure for Mark Gay because they know they've got to give 20% away to Chelsea. And I do think that's part of the discussion. I was going to come back to some comments. However, I will star those comments very, very quickly because we have our guest in the green room. So I'm not going to waste any more time talking about this topic because we've got the main man in the house to discuss it a little bit more. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back Ben Jacobs to talk all things Newcastle United. So welcome in, Ben. How you doing?
Good evening, gents. Great to be back. How are you?
Evening, Ben. Good, mate.
Not too bad, not too bad. We are frustrated. No major signings in, Ben. We're about 2.5 weeks away from the end of the transfer window. We're just discussing all things around Mark Gay, which I'm sure we'll come to in just a second. But should we be frustrated at this point now, in your opinion, Ben? 2.5 weeks away, no major cash signing for a new player, first choice player coming in. We've made some signings, but not those signings that are going to really kind of make the difference to our first team. Should we be in this position where fans are a little bit frustrated about where we're at?
Yeah, I think the frustration is normal from fans, but you have to understand the financial realities and the fact that Newcastle couldn't really start moving until after the PSR deadline. And then if you're going to improve the squad, you have to be ambitious. And by going for the caliber of a player like Mark Gay or Michael Olise, you need to understand there'll always be competition. And then you circle back to the fact that other clubs have got European football or things they can offer within their wage structure that Newcastle can't. So it's a challenge for PIF. And it's chicken and egg, really, because you either spend before you can spend in the hope that you raise to a certain level and then you're more attractive and then the money comes in, or you have to be a little bit more cautious. And these financial rules obviously restrict Newcastle. So it has been a bit of a frustrating window. I don't really think Dan Ashworth's departure has had much to do with it because the plan was always there under him and Paul Mitchell, James Bunce can't overly influence that. And the last point is, of course, at the moment anyway, the thing not to be frustrated about is that they've held on to all of the stars that they've wanted to keep. Alexander Isak's untouchable. It would take an astronomical offer now for Bruno Guimaraes to go. Sven Botman's not had any interest and is injured at the moment. That's probably helped in some ways, but I don't think that they would have sold him. Maybe there's an argument that Callum Wilson going out the door or Miguel Almiron would have created a bit more funds and allowed them to move, but I don't think it's a disaster if you start the season with Callum Wilson or Miguel Almiron, and there's always the opportunity to revisit both of their situations in January.
Yeah. No, you're right. Obviously, we'd have liked to got those players in, but you're right as well. And to be fair, it's been well documented with regards to making sure that we're not overpaying. We've got the PSR thing we need to think about. As you mentioned, we don't want to be in this position again this time next year where we're having to consider selling players that we don't necessarily want to leave the club. So completely understand that situation. But as well as that, we've got the other thought, and me and Chris talked about this on Monday, we've got the other thought that actually we need to hit back next season. We fell out of Europe after playing Champions League. We want to be hitting back and at least getting European football as a bare minimum. So we want the strongest squad possible to be able to kickstart our season and start strongly. We've got a nice set of fixtures to begin the season. You'd want the best squad possible. I think that's what a lot of fans, Newcastle fans, have got in the back of their mind. They want the strongest squad possible to really attack this season. So there are a lot of mixed feelings with regards to this. And obviously, of course, in order to be able to sign players and maximise ourselves within PSR, we need to sell players. And this is kind of where I'll start with you, Ben, because obviously there has been some noise over the last 24, 48 hours, all related to Miguel Almiron. Now, most fans back in May would have expected Miguel Almiron to have already left the club by now. Rumours of Saudi Arabia, rumours that we've touched on before, Ben, this summer that you touched on back in January, where he could have moved to Saudi Arabia. But I'll just kind of bring up the storyboard, some of which you've reported on as well, in that you'd mentioned yesterday that talks were continuing after the first rejection of the bid from Charlotte FC. And you also then reported today, because we knew the MLS deadline was coming to a close, that the deal was then off. And you'd reported it alongside Tom Burgart as well, with regard to this situation. Now, this is, as I'm going through this sort of storyboard, Ben, this is something I wanted to ask you and hopefully clear up, because you've put, from your understanding, Charlotte made multiple offers, no fee was agreed. However, Fabrizio Romano was reported on it and said the initial agreement on contract terms, no agreement between the clubs, and the request was too high. However, the Athletic have reported, that Miguel Almiron wage demand was too high, and that there was a verbal agreement between the two sides. And then someone that's close to Miguel Almiron, Roberto Rojas, who we've had on the channel before, has said he understands why we're frustrated that he's not moved on, but he's generally happy at the club. So that's why he's not necessarily forcing himself out of the move. So just within those reports, there are kind of conflicting reports there. One saying that he's asked for too much money, which is why the deal hasn't happened. The other, from your perspective, is that the money wasn't agreed with Charlotte FC. Just can you add some clarity on that from your perspective and what you know with regards to why that deal hasn't gone through?
Yeah, I mean, take a guess which information I'm going to corroborate based on the fact that it comes straight from this horse's mouth. But no, I mean, I'm not here to in any way shout down other people's stories. No. You know that I respect other journalists and outlets, so I can just tell you the information that I've reported in a little bit more detail. My understanding is there was no problem on the Almiron side. There was an agreement of terms between Almiron's agent and Charlotte, and then as a consequence of that, they came to London very serious about trying to get a deal done. Now, we should point out, especially if people are watching this again, that the MLS deadline closes today. So unless we get something insane and dramatic, then the deal is 100% off. And by the time some people watch this on potentially a pre-record, the deadline will have passed and this chapter will have ended. So in the talks with Charlotte and Newcastle, it's insisted by several sources that there was no club-to-club agreement, only an Almiron and Charlotte agreement. And that includes, by the way, the agent fees as well. And as I reported, there were multiple offers made by Charlotte, and Newcastle's valuation was a little bit lower, actually, than in January when Al Shabab had a verbal agreement in principle for about 30 million euros. So that's actually as high as about 25 million pounds, which would have been good business for Newcastle, albeit 6 months ago, you'd expect the valuation to be a little bit higher. Now we're talking more around the 20 to $25 million mark. So at an absolute maximum, 20 million quid. But really, Newcastle would have done business more for 16 or 17 million under the right terms and the right structure. So the first offer that Charlotte made was quite add-on heavy and was in the region of 8. The second one that was rejected, as you saw on the screen there, was around 10. And it was pretty readily dismissed. And Newcastle, as I say, started around this 20 number. And then they came down, I'm told, to 16 plus 2. And that was kind of the final offer. And Charlotte were not prepared to get anywhere close to that, still a goal from valuation. So they walked away, deal off. That's my understanding. And as I say, with only a matter of hours now to go before the MLS window shuts, it's highly, highly unlikely, if not impossible, that a deal is going to get done. Unless, of course, Newcastle just decide they want Almiron gone. I think that unlikely because they don't have a replacement in yet. And then maybe they would bend a little bit in structure because Charlotte would be prepared, for example, to take a loan with an option and not much financial liability, pay the wages and see where they're at in a year's time regarding their own finances and Almiron's position. But Newcastle really want a permanent sale, and the number that they're looking for was or is too high for Charlotte, to my understanding.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Chris, just want to get your thoughts on the situation, because we've not had a chance to kind of have a chat about this since it's broken. Miguel Almiron not leaving, does that worry you that the deal hasn't gone through with regards to the fact that he might not leave within this transfer window?
I wouldn't say I'm worried. Well, maybe I am slightly worried. I'm slightly worried. If someone was to say to me that we won't bring in a new right winger if we keep Miggy Almiron, that would worry me. However, if there's still a possibility of us bringing in a right winger to compete with Miggy Almiron, that would still work. Because let's not forget, Miggy Almiron, I think he would be a good squad player for Newcastle. He always gives 110%, puts in a shift. Unfortunately, he just falls into that category of one of those players now within the Newcastle squad who, you would like to bring off the bench or could be relied upon, for a League Cup game or maybe the odds handful of Premier League games, but he's not someone who you want in the starting 11 week in, week out in the Premier League, because unfortunately, as we've seen recently, he's not quite at that level. If we're aspiring to be a regular top 4, top 5, top 6 club, Miggy Almiron, he's just not going to produce the numbers that we want. We know he's capable at times, but it's sustaining it over that long period, over a full season, and I just don't think he can do that. Jacob Murphy falls into the same bracket for me. He has a lot of qualities. He brings a lot of good stuff to Newcastle, and apparently, behind the scenes, he's brilliant, as I'm sure Miggy Almiron is. But in terms of a starting 11 position week in, week out, he's no Anthony Gordon or, Alexander Isak, Bruno Gomes. That's the type of quality that we're looking for. And we do severely need to upgrade on the right wing position, as we do at the centre back position as well, in terms of squad depth. Slightly different reason, because it's about having that quality behind Fabian Schär if for whatever reason he's not in, and also replacing him, because he's not getting any younger. But the right wing position for me, it's something that needs upgrading right now. As soon as that right winger comes in, which hopefully it does, you want him to come in and be the starting right winger. So that's kind of where we are. If it meant that we kept Miggy Almiron and we could still make it work, I think Miggy being part of the squad is great. But I do feel like his time at Newcastle has come to an end. And I think if we can shift him on and get a reasonable fee for him, I think it would be good business for Newcastle so that we can invest elsewhere.
Yeah. See, I'm of the mindset that, for me, going into this season, Miguel Almiron isn't first choice. Not like he was in previous seasons. I think the form of Murphy towards the end of last season and his form in particular during this preseason puts him first choice. And I've got no evidence to suggest this. This is just my opinion. I do think that since that deal with Saudi Arabia, when it didn't happen in January, I've always felt that Miguel Almiron has been second choice since then, because it's almost like a phasing out period. If you want to sell a player, but you're starting him every week and he's feeling even more comfortable at the club because he's starting every week, it's not going to help him almost leave the club. And they're going to be respectful about it. Anyhow, very, very respectful, as are the club. So I think Murphy being first choice is almost telling within that. But I think not upgrading that right wing position, we've kind of asked all journalists that we've spoke to and all people that have been guests on this show, Ben. So I'll ask you the same question. Do you feel that Newcastle United will sign a right winger even if Miguel Almiron stays at the club?
Yeah, I think they're looking, as evidenced by the fact that even with Almiron at the club, they bid for Michael Olise. I think Noni Madueke has legs. And obviously, from Chelsea's point of view, even though people are presuming at the moment that Pedro Neto will actually go on the left, the right side is where he played for Wolves and thrived for Wolves. And I think you have the opportunity to use him on both flanks, which means Madueke might go down the pecking order. And one of, you would think, Nkunku or Cole Palmer also will have to play there if they're all in the side together, especially if Nicholas Jackson leads the line. So there is going to be scope, I think, for Chelsea to either with what they've got or bringing in one more, strengthen on that right-hand side and that pushes Madueke, who's had a good pre-season, by the way, with 3 goals and 1 assist, down the pecking order. And the consideration for me is really what you want from that right winger, because we've always sort of associated it with Eddie Howe, 4-3-3. I think he actually played a 4-2-3-1 against Brest, but generally speaking, Eddie Howe, 4-3-3. So within that front line, is the priority a winger, and it always kind of has been under Eddie Howe, or is it actually a wide forward? And the grey area is when you have a winger that comes with goals output. And the thing about Jacob Murphy and Miguel Almiron, if you discount the 1 half-season purple patch where he got into double figures, is both of those players removing that one part of Almiron's game in that 1 half season are between 1 and maximum, I would say, 5 goals a season. So they play like wingers and they have huge value. And of course, they get other goal contributions. But the reality is these are not players, Murphy or Almiron, if you exclude that, what looks like a statistical anomaly, that are going to get you 10, 12, 15 goals a season. Whereas there's other wingers out there or wide forwards out there that can get you those numbers. So the consideration, I think, in terms of how they move in the market is, do you want a winger to be a traditional winger, and then you back your Isaacs, your Gordons, your Wilsons, and a few midfielders to get the goals necessary? And if so, you say, we're okay, actually, because when you look back at Newcastle's success in the Champions League, they didn't need that many goals because they were keeping clean sheets for fun. So then you come back to the previous points made about maybe a fit Pope, maybe a fit Botman, maybe another centre-back defensive reinforcement, Livramento probably coming through and being the heir to Kieran Trippier, hopefully Lewis Hall starting to shine. You start to think, actually, if that defence is good enough, and Lloyd Kelly has already joined as well, we might not need that many goals. So then he might purposefully want to play at times, especially away from home, on the counter-attack with wide wingers and not be that fussed about output. But if you're actually flipping it and saying, we think we're going to concede more goals, then you need to score more goals. And at that point, I don't actually think it's the mould of Almiron or Jacob Murphy that's needed on the right-hand side. It's a goal-scoring winger or a wide forward. And that's not really Noni Madueke, but he has actually got on the score sheet a few times in pre-season. He cuts inside quite well. He can use his head a bit more than Miguel Almiron. I don't mean in terms of the intelligence. I mean, physically, he can score headers because he's a big, lanky guy with physicality that can leap quite high, get on the back post, throw himself into the box, that kind of player. Jared Bowen is another one that, because of his set-piece threat and the fact also that at West Ham, he's given a bit of a license, he can get on the score sheet a little bit as well. So for me, it's kind of an interesting one, because my overriding sense is that whether Almiron stays or goes, there's still that profile needed of basically a right forward, not necessarily a right winger. And there's such a big difference between Jared Bowen last season, 16 Premier League goals, versus Miguel Almiron, Jacob Murphy. I'm not even sure in their entire Premier League careers they've got too much more than that. I mean, there was the 11-1 season for Almiron, but it can only be 6 or 7 Premier League goals outside of that. And Jacob Murphy probably only has 6, 7, 8 career Premier League goals. Newcastle fans will be able to check specifically. So at best, they've got 25 goals between them. And Jared Bowen got 16 Premier League goals last season. And even in his worst full Premier League season, he still got 6 goals, which again is more than Jacob Murphy. So I think it's all about the tactical decision of how. Does he actually want an upgrade on Miguel Almiron, a traditional winger, or does he want a wide forward or goal-scoring winger that's a bit more proven, in which case, regardless of Jacob Murphy or Miguel Almiron, you've got to go out and find that in the market.
So, you've talked about Madueke and you've mentioned Jared Bowen. Like, do you see those two? Are they just examples, or do you see those two as genuine options for Newcastle United? Obviously, Madueke has been linked, as you touched on, with Newcastle United recently, and Chelsea have just signed a winger, as you said, with Pedro Neto. Are they viable options for Newcastle United? Obviously, Jared Bowen, you would imagine, would be quite an expensive deal to do.
Yeah, I think Jared Bowen's going to be difficult, and even more so now because West Ham have had such a productive window that he'll be quite happy where he is and with those kind of players around him. And the opportunity, for example, to link up with someone like Füllkrug will be very exciting for him because it's exactly the kind of striker that gets on the end of everything in terms of endeavour that Bowen does. So this late in the window, I think it's going to be really, really difficult. And, you know, from West Ham's point of view, even if they were offered a big sale, I think they have to be very wary. They're different positions quite clearly, but because of the question mark over Paquetá, West Ham are either going to lose him due to a suspension or still potentially in the next 12 months decide to sell. And if they plan for that, a bit like they planned for the long-term sale of Declan Rice, they can be budgeting for money. And I don't want to call it win-win because it's a very serious situation that Newcastle fans know all about with Sandro Tonali as well. But it's win-win for West Ham in the sense that there either won't be a ban and then they've got the opportunity to use him and or sell him. And eventually, if there's no ban, they can plan and budget for an exit because the Paquetá that is not suspended is going to command a big fee eventually, which is why Manchester City, before all of this, nearly paid 80 million, or he's going to be suspended, which is bad news for West Ham, but it means they're going to want to hang on to a lot of other players in and around him because they're going to have to deal with that situation. And therefore, somebody like Bowen is going to be very, I think, tricky to prize away. Similar story with Anthony Elanga. I would say that was Newcastle's top choice. And we know that when Elliot Anderson went to Nottingham Forest, they tried originally to bring Elanga the other way. And Forest made it clear that they don't want to sell. So I think in the last 2 weeks of the window, even with big money, that one's going to be very tricky. So we can cross that one off for now. And yeah, it leaves Madueke and probably in terms of other viable options, Nico Gonzalez as well, who's at Fiorentina, and they've liked him for some time. But Madueke is the most gettable one and not at a particularly steep price. Perhaps not a name compared anyway to Elise or even Elanga and certainly Jared Bowen that will overly excite Newcastle fans. But the price will be decent because Chelsea paid 35 million euros for the player a year ago. He's been in and out of the side. He's got a bit of swagger about him. He needs polishing a little bit. But we've seen in pre-season what he's capable of. And when you consider they signed him for 35 million euros, so about 30 million quid, and he might be available for 35 million, that's only 5 million more a year on, having been and played at Chelsea and being in relative good form and not having that many injury problems. So they just might go for that kind of deal if, and it still is an if, Madueke becomes available. And with Chelsea needing to reduce their squad size and having other options on that right-hand side, that could be one to watch that Newcastle could capitalise on between now and the end of the window.
Interesting, very interesting. It's like we've talked about before. Right wing is a hugely important position to fill. But it's interesting that what Ben's mentioned, Chris, about the fact that it might not be that winger that gives you the output. Is what we've been almost talking about because of the lack of goals and assists. It might be a winger that has the work rate and someone that offers something different because we have goals other places in the team. And we were third top goal scorers in the Premier League last season. So it's an interesting thought and I think something we'll come back to. But of course, the one big topic and talking point has been around the right centre-back position. And Mark Gay's situation continues to go on and on and on. Look, it was, only yesterday, or might have even been Monday, that there was confidence that this deal would be getting done. And look, you reported it yourself that we'd made a third offer. The bid was closer to the valuation of the 65 million, which had been reported. The Times touched on it as well, that 60 million bid was put in there. But then we hear from Sam Mokbel, who has been reporting as well as yourself, Ben, across this deal all the way through, that the bid had been rejected. What we then saw is Steve Parish talk about the fact that we hadn't yet met the fee that they want. He talked about him being a superstar player. And that's the interview that really got out to everybody, the Sky interview. But he'd also made some other respectful comments about Newcastle United. I think this was related to TalkSport. And he has been respectful. He said that Newcastle United have been a very respectful club. They've done things the right way. but obviously we've not given them a decision to make. So he was very, very positive in his talk about Newcastle United. And then we had, not long before the show tonight, where Mark Gay spoke himself, and he was asked that question about being a superstar, and Mark Gay came back and said, "I'm not quite sure that I'm a superstar." Very respectful in his words and speaking. No questions asked about Newcastle United. I want to get your thoughts on that, Ben. But obviously was very humbled in the comments of Steve Parish towards him. The question we have right now, and there's a few, Ben, I'm not going to lie. We had this conversation just before you came onto the show. There's been reports of Palace changing the goalposts as such and now wanting 70 million. Some people are reporting, as are yourself, that the ballpark figure is 65 million. So we definitely need that to be cleared up. And I don't know if you'll be able to add that clarity to that. But where do you see this deal now? There are Newcastle United fans that are saying, walk away from the deal, don't put any more at the table. There are some Newcastle United fans that are saying, pay the extra, however much it is, to get him in. He's a quality player. Do you see this deal being done? Or do you see Newcastle United walking away now that bid has rejected? Or has it been rejected, Ben?
Yeah, it's been turned down, but you have a back and forth at this stage with any kind of deal, and I think that's very normal. And ultimately, with Newcastle, the third offer they made was supposed to be take it or leave it. But again, you have to take or leave that information with a slight pinch of salt, because when you want a player, you might always go back. From Palace's point of view, they're not going to lose Joachim Andersen and Mark Gay in the same window. So they're in quite a good position to get the highest possible price for either of them, due to the fact that we're now in a situation where the bidders are not just looking at club-to-club agreements for each individual player. They're looking, Fulham and Newcastle, at each other and thinking, yikes, which one of us is going to go high enough and quick enough to get Palace to say yes, because then they're going to say no to the other one. And this is why the 70 million number is there now, even though it had previously always been 60 million plus. So it's almost baiting Newcastle into going up and rushing something to stop Joachim Andersen to Fulham being accepted first. And Fulham have also made an improved bid. So there's definitely some games going on. We wait and see now whether Newcastle are prepared to go any higher. And I think they will, because they view Mark Gahey as a generational talent, and they agree with Crystal Palace in that respect, which is what Steve Parish said. So this one still could get done between now and the end of the window. It'd be a real coup for Newcastle. It would be a huge signing. It would be something that excites the fan base. It would be very beneficial because a couple of defenders are out between now and the end of the year. But I don't see them going as high as 70 million. I'm still told that 60 plus 5 will likely do it. And 65 fixed, even with no add-ons, will obviously stand a very realistic chance as well. So I think Palace are kind of posturing, which you'd expect. And you have to respect that within the negotiations. And Steve Parish's public comments certainly make the club's position clear. But Newcastle are still there, and there is some optimism that this one can get over the line.
Very interesting. So you still believe that Newcastle United are at the table at this point with regards to Mark Gay?
Yeah, I think they absolutely are. I don't buy the take it or leave it situation. That's a very normal thing to say when you yourself are trying to get the best possible deal. And we know that Newcastle have a relatively strict budget they work to and don't want to go beyond that. But you're almost playing a poker hand in any football transfer where you make 3 bids, because you're basically going all in and you're putting your cards on the table. So then to pick them up and walk away, it's not normally how clubs work. And that is also what gives Palace, and we saw it with Chelsea and Moises Caicedo, a slight advantage, because they know how badly Newcastle want the player. They know that there may be other interests between now and the end of the window. They feel that there's demand. They know Newcastle need to strengthen in this position. And they know that Newcastle really want to pull off a flagship signing that the whole fan base can get excited about between now and the new season. So I think that 55 plus 5 was never quite going to be enough, because 60 million was always the fixed part of the fee that Palace are looking for. But if a situation arises where Newcastle up by 5 the fixed fee to 60 and the overall package is 65, then sources still indicate that there's a realistic chance that something can get done.
Okay, it's an interesting one. So can you, and I'm going to ask you this question, can you see this going out until deep into the latter stages of the window? And I'm talking like the final couple of days or so. We've got 2.5 weeks left. And the reason why I asked this is because, and sorry to steal the chat for a second, Chris.
No, go for it, mate.
Craig Lee, I think, makes a really good statement here. He says, I don't care how long it takes. I want the right players, not players right now. So not buying players for the sake of it. You want the players that actually are going to help this team be the best team it could possibly be. So that's the point that I'm making, really, is that do you see this running deep into the window, or can you see it being resolved before this weekend or maybe just after? Sorry, man.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a situation where the Palace position will probably not allow it to run until the end of the window, because you'll have a situation where either Anderson or Gahey leaves and then the other one needs to be settled. So Palace won't want this one dragging out with both of their centre-backs being potential targets. Otherwise, it's going to overshadow their season. They're going to want to get to game one of the season and have a sense of who they can start, because as much as you'd like to start both of them, you don't want a jeopardy with somebody's fitness whereby a deal you think is going to happen is pulled away. So it's a really key 48 hours now to see whether or not anything with one or the other can be agreed. And that allows Palace to shut the door with the other player. So I don't think this one is going to drag on, because I don't think that Palace will allow it to. And there's not, like with Eberici Eze, a release clause there that creates a situation where someone can come back late in the window to try and get the deal done. And as a consequence of that, we're going to have to wait and see now whether or not there's movement in the next 48 hours, whether or not Fulham are able to get Anderson over the line, and whether or not Newcastle are prepared to up their bid. And there is the domino effect, not just between the two clubs, but also, as I said before, with the new season in mind and Crystal Palace not wanting to lose both their centre-backs. So everything is a little bit intertwined, and Newcastle will know that and will have to now show their full hand very quickly, including going up in valuation if they want to get it done. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't see it being a case of the final hours of the window. I see it as being a case of between now and maximum early next week, it resolving itself. And from Palace and Newcastle's point of view, and Fulham and Palace's point of view with Anderson, between now and really the opening game of the season, because that's when people want to do the bulk of their business, not on deadline day, not a few days before deadline day. They want to get things done so their team is locked and set for the first game of the season. So not just with Gay and Newcastle, but with Anderson and Fulham, I would watch this space between now and Saturday. And then let's wait and see whether both or one of the players, if anything moves, is included in that first match day squad.
Ben, it's been a pleasure. I know you've got to shoot because you've got something urgent that you need to handle. I would like to ask what it was, but I'm not going to. I just hope it was something Newcastle related. That's all. But pleasure to have you on, Ben. And look, we'll get you back on very, very soon. Thank you for taking the time.
Cheers, guys. All the best. Keep up the good work. Speak soon. Bye.
No problem. Take care, Ben. Great to have Ben on. He is reporting on something as is going on right now. I don't know whether it's Newcastle related, with fingers crossed. Hope it is, but he's had to shoot to report on that. So got some interesting kind of perspectives there from Ben with regards to Mark Gay. He still believes that it's 65 million in terms of the valuation that Palace want. So the 60 plus 5 could potentially get that deal done if Newcastle were willing to go to that. Okay, he doesn't believe it's going to go deep into the window, and nor would we want it to, I think, as Newcastle fans. He thinks potentially early to mid next week that we see some movement, some significant movement on this deal, either getting done or not. He's also mentioned the Joachim Andersen situation with Fulham. They're currently at 20 million or 25 plus 5. So they're at around the 30 million mark. Palace want 40 at this point. So this is this is where we're going to be possibly keeping an eye on Fulham and Joachim Andersen, as well as Mark Gay and Newcastle United, in terms of which deal can potentially be agreed and done first. They're not going to sell both centre backs, are they?
No. I agree with you, Pete. I think this is the, and do you know what makes it even more interesting? The fact that Joachim Andersen allegedly was on our list previously.
Yeah.
And, you do think to yourself, if you don't want to pay the 65 million for Mark Gage, you just go to Palace. It's 35 million plus 5 million and add-ons for Joachim Andersen. I don't know. I mean, he's 28 years old, so he's not a great age. Definitely not. But clearly a player that we've looked at previously, if reports are led to be believed. He'd be 4 years younger than Fabian Schär.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what? I'm probably going down an alley. I don't need to go down here, but ultimately, I when that news broke about Joachim Andersen and it was saying that Fulham were looking to get the deal done, my first thought was they're not going to sell both of them, and they just won't. So if that deal gets done, or Fulham decide to put the money down to make sure that deal does get done, that makes it a little bit nervy then, because I think Palace then shut the door, or Palace go, the price for Gay is 80 million now, because we don't need to sell him, and then that's when you would expect Newcastle to walk away and just go, nah, that's it. So it's a bit uncomfortable at the moment, I'd say, Pete. But in fairness, mate, we've felt like this for a lot of the window, haven't we? We've been slowly getting signings in. I mean, I've seen people in the chat saying we haven't signed anyone. We have signed people, but I do understand why people feel that way, because we've not made any what you would call stellar or significant signings, in that you turn around and go, oh my God, that's going to make a huge difference to our starting 11. I agree with that. But we are slowly but surely building up the quality of the squad, but we are lacking, and it's fair to say, we said it before, we're lacking a centre half and we're lacking a right winger. By the way, I just want to say I'm very sorry to anyone in the chat. I know I was starring some questions, and me and Pete will do our best to bring those questions up and discuss them. We did have intentions of asking Ben, but obviously, as you can see, he needed to shoot off. Some breaking news came in. Hopefully some Mark Gahey breaking news, but I'm sure we'll find that out in due course.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing I'll say is that, to the points that you've just made, Chris, I genuinely believe that if Palace had changed the goalpost to 70 million, I don't believe Newcastle and United would be at the table right now. I genuinely think we'd have already walked away. And it was interesting to hear Ben say that he still believes that Newcastle United is still at the table, even after the third bid being rejected. So Ben had mentioned it was a take it or leave it offer, but he still believes, even though that offer was rejected or turned down, in his words, that we're still at the table. If they've changed the goalpost to 70 million, like most of the people in the chat are saying, we should walk away. If it was 70 million, we'd have already walked away. We'd have already gone and signed somebody else, or put a bid in for somebody else by now. We would have not let it run for this long. So for me, I still think the initial 65 million is there, which is the reason why Newcastle United would still be at the table at this point, which makes me feel like the deal is still there to be done. It can still be done at this point. And it's just a case of wait and see how this kind of runs out. I think Ben made a good point. He said by sort of early next week, if there's been no movement, I do think Newcastle United will move on. I genuinely think that, because Newcastle United, and some people on socials have put it on social media, and I understand it to a point, we do have enough right now, in my opinion, to beat Southampton at the weekend at St. James's Park.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To get the points right now with the squad that we've got available, 100%. So we can let it run a little bit longer. But after that, when we kick into the season, you do want your best players available, and you do want your signings in the squad by then. And we've got to remember, and we've talked about it before Ben came on, it's not just the right centre back that we're after. You talked about it as well. Ben talked about it. We've all talked about it. We need that right winger. So you need time to make sure you can go out there and get the right winger. you don't want to be having to juggle both positions at the same time, because they're both really crucial, important deals to be done. So I just think there's work to be done, and work to be done quickly. Now, the positive for us is that Palace don't play till Sunday, so I think there's time to get this deal wrapped up before then, to ensure that he's not playing, because ultimately you've then got the potential of somebody getting injured, and then if a player gets injured, that changes perspectives of bids and signing players completely. So that's something to take into consideration as well.
Yeah,
but lots of great points that people have been putting in the chat. Lots of great discussions as well. There has been movement in other areas too. There have been reports that Newcastle United are interested in Toulouse centre-back Logan Costa. And Sebastian Vidal has been reporting that Newcastle's interest as well, and his words were taken by Makato as well, saying that there is an interest in entering into direct competition with West Ham, although I don't think West Ham are at the table now after their centre-back signings of John Clare Todibo. It says the Magpies would like to make him the last big recruit of the summer transfer window. It says the Whites and Blacks, I think we've got that mixed up, would be on the verge of making a big offer. So that's an interesting one there. Now, just a little bit of a profile very quickly on Logan Costa, because I don't know too much about him. I'm not sure if you do.
No, I don't, mate, at all. Don't at all. I was funny enough, I was going to say, get that comparison off, because I was just thinking the exact same thing, because I genuinely, I don't know much about him at all, mate.
Well, he's 23 years old, a Cape Verde international, plays for Toulouse. He's predominantly a centre-back, a right-sided centre-back, right-footed. Played a number of games last season, started 29 out of the 31, 1 goal and 1 assist over the course of the season. You can see in this heat map, he gets himself about, he gets himself up the pitch. He seems like a solid defender. I don't know too much about him. This is where we could probably look into him in a little bit more detail in the shows to come. But the comparisons, should we get the comparisons out there?
Yeah.
Who do you want to link him to? Fabian Schär?
Yeah, I was going to say Fabian Schär. Yeah, let's get Fabian Schär on so we can see like what we're comparing him against as to what we've got now. I think that'll be a good one. Oh, look at that.
So very, very, very similar stats there, as you can see.
Look at that.
You can see there. So Fabian Schär is in the blue, but not too far away in terms of statistical performance over the course of last season, which is very, very interesting. So definitely within the same ballpark with regards to that. Let's look what he comes up against with regards to Mark Gay. Wow. That's a near identical performance there.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, younger. I mean, how tall is 188 centimeters, Pete? Is that like, it's got to be at least 6'4", isn't it? Got to be.
Yeah, I would have said
maybe higher.
I would have said 6'3".
Yeah, let's do a little check. Seeing as we're doing all comparisons this evening, I'm going to see how tall is 188 centimeters.
I would have gone around the 6'3" mark. Someone in the chat can share that with us. Oh, okay. Not far off.
Okay. Yeah.
So a good height, great age, and statistically performing very, very similar to both Mark Gay and Fabian Schär in particular. It looks like an identical performance to Mark Gay, which is staggering, really. So that's an interesting one. One to keep an eye out with regards to Newcastle looking at alternatives. That's Logan Costa, Cape Verde international at Toulouse, and we do like buying players from the French market. And so that one, definitely one to keep an eye on and look at here. Some outgoings though. What is going on with this situation with this man, Ryan Fraser? I have no idea what's going on with him. Alex Alex Crook of the Talksport had it confirmed by Russell Martin today that Ryan Fraser's deal is nowhere near done. And that is not a good sign for Newcastle United. You know, we need our fringe players gone, particularly those that are nowhere near the squad. Ryan Fraser hasn't even been training with the club over the course of this pre-season. He's not been involved one bit with Newcastle United. But Russell Martin, the manager of Southampton, has said the deal is nowhere near agreed. This is a strange situation. Really, really strange situation. I don't know what's happening with regards to Ryan Fraser. Are we ever going to get rid of him? That's my question to you people in the chat. Are we ever going to be able to move this guy on? I'm assuming, Ali, you're referring to Ryan Fraser in this situation here. Ian as well. I'm trying to eat my tea and you're flashing Ryan Fraser at me. I apologise. But we do need to talk about those players that need to be moved on. Chris, let's talk about Ryan Fraser and that deal nowhere near happening. This is getting a bit frustrating.
Yeah, he's a player who needs to move on, isn't he? Like, you know, we know that he's not wanted at the club. We know that he doesn't want to be at the club. We know he wants to move to Southampton. We know Southampton want him. If rumours are to be believed, Pete, you know, apparently it's all coming from Ryan Fraser's end and that he wants a nice little payoff before he joins Southampton. But ultimately, that's something that only Ryan Fraser can answer or do himself, because I can understand why Newcastle are like, no, you know, we're giving you a free transfer, but we're not also going to pay you as well. So it's a bit of a tricky situation, isn't it? Because, as I say, all clubs and Ryan Fraser want it to happen, but it seems that Ryan Fraser wants his cake and eat it, and that's obviously an issue. How this pans out, I don't know. I mean, it's no good for the club, and it's no good for Ryan Fraser if he stays and he ends up playing in the under-21s for 6 to 12 months. Because let's be honest, his heart's always been in the South Coast. He's got to move to Southampton. He had a very good season last season. So, I mean, for me, I'm not Ryan Fraser and I'm not on 50, 60 grand a week, which apparently he's on at Newcastle. I'm pretty sure he won't get that at Southampton, but surely he'd get a reasonably good wage. And the fact that he'd be playing at a club that he wants to be at and a club where he's values and, you know, the manager really rates him very highly, you'd think that he'd just cut ties and get the deal done, but seemingly there's something holding them back from doing that. And it's a shame if that's the case, because Newcastle will look at it and just go, okay, we'll just stay, but you're not going to be anywhere near the first team squad, and it's only going to impact and hinder his career, because if he waits 6 months, if he waits till January or he waits till the end of the season, will Southampton still want him? It's a big risk he's taken.
Definitely. It is a huge risk, and so many people have got their opinions on Ryan Fraser. Ali was just very sharp and to the point about Ryan Fraser. I asked her whilst you were away, I said, was that referred to Fraser? And she was just very clear in that yes, it was. Lots of people have been talking about this, and Craig Lee's just mentioned it on the chat as well, so I'll bring it up. It's because Fraser wants his contract paid up to leave, which we're aware of. We've talked about it before. His refusal to leave is because he wants that final year paid up, which to scupper his move to Southampton, if the club actually wants him, I just find it wild. Of course, you want to be paid well for what you're doing, but there's got to be a kind of satisfaction in career and playing football. There's got to be a bit of a balance here. My question would be to Ryan Fraser: how does this make Southampton? Like, what are Southampton thinking right now? What are they thinking, knowing that you're haggling over a certain fee being paid to you, stopping your move to them, and they've got a Premier League season that they're just about to embark on? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's baffling to me.
No, it doesn't reflect well on him as an individual, and it certainly, for me anyway, you know, if I'm the manager, I'm questioning his character. Because let's be honest, football isn't really the real world, is it? You know, we talk about astronomical figures and crazy money, and I'm sure Ryan Fraser's doing all right in terms of money. I'm sure he's doing okay, and I'm sure the offer on the table from Southampton, he'll get by. I'm sure he will. So if I'm the manager of Southampton and I'm going, yes, you've got this really, really good wage at Newcastle United, but surely you're putting your career before the money. You're putting your career before the money, and playing in the Premier League week in, week out, being with a club who really like you, a manager who really likes you, and fans who adore you after such a good last season. I'd be thinking, if I'm Southampton, I mean, Russell Martin wouldn't come out and say this, but if I'm Russell Martin, I'm thinking, do I want a player like that in my squad who is just all about the money? Because I'd be questioning, you know, his I'd be questioning like his motives for joining Southampton. Is it just about the money? Because you know, he came to Southampton. He's coming, as I say, off the back of a really good season. And Russell Martin's gone, great, let's bring him in. Newcastle want to do the deal. We want to do the deal. Ryan Fraser loves it here. And then Ryan Fraser's like, oh, hang on, I just need to sort out my money issue. And he's probably thinking, well, what money issue? Just join. Yeah. So for me, it questions Ryan Fraser's integrity. It really does for me.
Like I said, Newcastle would apparently agreed a free transfer, so we weren't getting anything from him. We just wanted to have his contract released, and everything you've just said must be raising alarm bells now for Russell Martin in Southampton. Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. Maybe it's a question to ask Mike tomorrow on away days, because away days is returning. The big match preview with Matchday Vlogs. Mike is back at 6:30 tomorrow, so we will ask him that question around Ryan Fraser. And to be fair, a few people have made some valid points, and there's another point here made by Dave. Welcome, Dave, into the chat. Hope you're well. Could we be possibly waiting for Saturday's game to be done? Then we see movement, quite possibly.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, it's a great point there. BT had mentioned Ryan Fraser had been spotted in Southampton Airport.
I did see that.
Fan. Apparently, that fan did say that he was flying back to Newcastle. So there was the excitement. There was excitement. I think the fan was excited because it was a Southampton fan. Thought he was flying in to hopefully sign the deal, but he was actually flying out. So read into that what you will. Could be something, could be nothing. Hopefully, he was just flying back to pick up his things to go back to Southampton and get it confirmed. But it could have been the other way. Who knows? I think what we'll do right now is we want to talk about the squad. What squad have we got available, ready to tackle this season? And the question is the squad strong enough? But before we do that, I think let's say a big thanks to our sponsors, the Radiator Shed. Big thanks to Russ and the team at the Radiator Shed. If you want your radiators in place for the winter ahead, make sure you contact Russ at radiatorshed.com. You can call them on 07766 604 112. And if you're purchasing a radiator from them, make sure you use the Loaded 20 code to make that happen. And whilst you're there, check us out on all our socials. If you're not following Loaded Mag NUFC on all our socials, make sure you are. Some of you join from YouTube, but if you are on X, Instagram, or TikTok, make sure you're following us on all three platforms. And of course, those of audio, make sure you are looking at Spotify and Apple Music to follow us on that. And any business inquiries, check out our email, loadedmagnufcinfo@gmail.com. Right, Chris, you've had this for a while, the squad. You wanted to talk about the squad in a little bit more detail. So what are you thinking with regards to this season? Why are you bringing the squad to the table?
Yeah, do you know what, Pete? And I thought it would be useful for us as a channel and also for the viewers at home, you know, to have a look at the squad and to kind of see where we are, see where things stand. Now, you'll notice from this picture that I've pulled, I did this on an app. I think it's called First 11, actually, the app, or Lineup 11, something like that. Anyway, I put the squad together. Hopefully everyone can see that at home. I hope it's not too small. And you'll notice there's a few absentees. So obviously I've not included the likes of Trevor Sanusi. I've not included Alfie Harrison, because for me, I think I don't want to put any pressure on those players, and I do think that they will be in and around the squad, but I've only included players who are pretty much in the 11 or, you know, have a very strong chance of being in the 11 this coming season. And I thought it would be good to look at the squad as it is, because hopefully it'll provide a little bit of assurance in that, because when I put the squad together, and I think I spoke to you and Daz about this, and I said, you know what? The squad's not looking that bad. Yes, it can be improved, but I'm sure if you asked the other 19 Premier League clubs, they'd all say their squad could be improved. But it provided me a little bit of assurance, because I thought to myself, do you know what? Maybe things aren't as bad as what it seems or what it feels at the minute, because we know that there's a couple of gaps there, and you can see that clearly from the image. But looking at this, Pete, obviously I've put Pope in goal as the number one. We've got Vlachodimos. We've got John Woody and we've got Mark Gillespie below there. So I think we're pretty stocked in that area. You'll see on the left back position, I've put in Lewis Hall as the first choice left back. We've then got Jamal Lewis and Matty Targett just below him. In the left centre back position, obviously Sven Botman when he's fit. I think he would be the first choice left centre back. Under him, we've got Dan Burn and we've got Lloyd Kelly, who obviously has recently joined us. So again, looking pretty stocked in that left centre back position. And yes, a few of these players will be interchangeable. You know, they'll be able to play in multiple positions. I've put in a new right centre back, and that's not discarding Fabian Schär in any way whatsoever. Obviously, Fabian Schär will start the season, and I'm absolutely delighted that he'll be starting the season, by the way. But you know, going forward long term, I think it is a position that we're looking to upgrade on. And most people will argue, and Pete, I think you said it on the last show, if Mark Gahey comes in, and certainly long term, we're probably going to be looking at a right side for him, right side of centre back, with him being right footed, and obviously Sven Botman's there on the left side. Below him, we're obviously below this new signing, this new right centre back that we're after. We've got Fabian Schär and Jamal Lascelles, who was just mentioned earlier. Right back, we've got Tino Livramento. Just below there, we've got Emil Kraft. We've got Harrison Ashby. And I've got Kieran Trippier there as well with a question mark. Maybe something we can touch on when we go into a little bit more detail. In that holding central midfield position, we've got Bruno Gomes and we've got Lewis Miley. Now, some people will go, oh, have you included Lewis Miley? He's only a youngster. The reason I've included him is because obviously he had a bit of a breakout season last season, played a lot more football than anyone expected. But I think he is firmly part of this, you know, this first squad, first team squad. On the left side of central midfield, we've got Joe Linton being, well, with Joe Willock just behind him in that left centre midfield position. On the right side of the central midfield, we've got Sandro Tonali, who we all can't wait to come back. I know he's not back until the Spurs game on the 1st of September, but pretty much there, nearly back. And then just below him, we've got Sean Longstaff as a backup option. Up front, I think, you know, the options, just as well as me, Pete, we've got Anthony Gordon as the first choice left winger with Harvey Barnes just below him. We've got Alexander Isak through the middle with Wilson and Asula supporting. I feel so much more confident about that, by the way, seeing that visually as options right there. And then a new right winger. That's what we were discussing earlier and now with Murphy and Almiron supporting. But what are your overall thoughts? The reason I've read all that out, by the way, Pete, is in case people can't see it, and also see for our audio listeners. But what are you thinking when you look at that starting 11? How are you feeling about it? And you know, is there any other positions with a little bit of
Overall, Chris, I'm excited about the squad in general. But in particular, that first 11. So you look, I mean, you can't help but look at that midfield three. And people in the chat, let us know your thoughts on that. That for me is one of the best midfield threes in the Premier League.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. That midfield three is one of the best in the Premier League. And the fact you've got Joe Willock to add to that, A young Lewis Miley, when back fit and firing, apparently end of September, sort of October time, he'll be back fit and firing. You add him into that mix. Obviously, you've got Longstaff, the question mark in there. You've got fantastic options in there. Even the front three. You've got Gordon and Barnes. You've got strength there. David Knight's just put in there missing Sanusi, who will be staying with the first team squad as well, who's been exciting back from preseason. So you add him into the mix. Isaac, Wilson, Asula. Bearing in mind, if we can keep Wilson fit, which I do believe with 1 game a week, he's more likely to stay fit. But you add the excitement and the unpredictability of Asula in there, alongside the guaranteed quality of Isaac. He's got a strong front line. And for me, the defense is not in a bad situation. There's an interesting situation with Kieran Trippier. We're 2.5 weeks away, and there's the rumors of him leaving have dampened. The link with West Ham has kind of gone away. There's no real links elsewhere. I've got a feeling he's going to stay. I've got a feeling he's going to stay. And if we've got Tino and Trips fighting out for that right back position, I think that's a really strong position for us to be in. Now, you look at the left back situation. You've got Hall. And I think genuinely it will be Hall and Kelly that will be fighting out for that left back position. I think at the moment it will be Hall and Lewis. I did see a slight rumour, nothing concrete, that we were potentially looking at selling Target rather than Lewis. Nothing's been confirmed there, but I wouldn't be surprised by that. If we get Botman back in sort of October, November, December time, you got Botman and Byrne fighting out with maybe Kelly for that left-hand berth. You get a Mark Gay or someone of that ilk coming in with Shaw. We've got a strong, honestly, we've got a strong squad.
Yeah. I think so too.
And a strong, 2 11s that you could put out there in different situations that you'd be confident that they could go out and do the business. So you look at that, it makes you feel confident about the season ahead. The only thing that I'm not confident about, that would make me not confident about that squad of players, with an addition of a right centre back and a right winger, would just be keeping them fit. Are you in the kind of the same boat with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because as soon as you lose 1 or 2 in key positions, you do get a little bit nervous, don't you? I mean, obviously Alexander Isak's an obvious one. Any team in the Premier League or world football would miss Alexander Isak, so there's no doubt about that. The one that gets me, Pete, and I keep looking at it and I keep thinking, and we've spoke about this in detail, I know, is the goalkeeper position. As soon as you drop Nick Pope out of that, you're looking at Vlachodimos, John Ruzzi, Mark Gillespie. I know I haven't put in Mark Dubravka, by the way, for anyone who spotted that. I can't see the comments. Maybe you have. Good. But I still firmly, I still firmly believe he's going. I just don't see Martin Dubravka staying. But there's a big drop in quality if Nick Pope isn't in the starting 11, and we saw that last season. Let's be frank about that. Obviously,
I've got a question on that in a second, mate.
Oh yeah, go on, mate. Yeah, go on.
Not right now, but I have got a question on that in a second that I want to throw at you with regards to that goalkeeping situation. But just a couple of points. Stu Amos, resident spanner in the house. I hope you're well, Stu. When is Target due back? He's actually back in training. He's not fit to play this weekend, but he's been back in training for about a week and a half, I think. So he is back, like Callum Wilson is, but they're just not fit to play. So yeah, that's the situation. I think now he's back fit in training. It's the perfect time to sell him on. What fee you would command for Matt Target is the kind of the key information there. I mean, what type of fee would you be looking for, Chris, with regards to Matt Target? For me, I'd be trying to get around 10 million for him. We signed him for 12, anywhere between 8 and 10 million. I think I'd snap a club's hand off for that.
Yeah, Mate, you've literally took the words out of my mouth. When you first said 10, I was thinking, 8 to 10, and then you went 8 to 10. Yeah, completely agree. 8 to 10 million. I think that would be a decent return for Matty Targett. He's probably in the same ballpark as me as Chris was. He came in, he did a job, he served a purpose. Would you take a small hit on him? I think so. I think if we got 8 to 10 million for Matty Targett, knowing what we've got in reserve as well, because you're quite right, when you look at that left centre-back position, we know Dan Burn can play left-back. We know Lloyd Kelly can play left-back. We know Tino Livramento can play left-back. So yeah, I think we probably do have too many left-backs. I think that's fair to say. So if we were to get between 8 and 10 million for Matty Targett, I think it'd be a good deal for the club.
Definitely. Hey, David Cook, you're trying to wind me up on purpose here. Putting this in, no one will buy Target on he's not on 100 grand a week. Don't do that. We did it with Chris Wood. I'm not having it. He ain't on 100 grand a week. No way. I'm not having it. But welcome, David. I hope you're well. Great to have you in the chat. Bradley Gardner makes a really good point. I don't think I've seen Bradley's comments in the chat before. So if you're new, welcome into the channel. Great to have you. If we lose one more centre back, we're in trouble, and I have to agree with him.
Yeah.
With regards to that, sorry, that's without obviously signing a right back, because quite rightly you've got Botman in there, Chris, you've got Lascelles in there, but they're both out long term. They're not starting the season with us. So we've only got Kelly, Byrne, and Shaw, and there's question marks on Shaw. I don't know if there's been pictures coming out today of players training. Please, someone tell me in the chat that they've seen Shaw pictured training. I haven't seen any. I've seen Kelly and a few other players. I haven't seen. If Shaw's not fit, and we're going in with Byrne and Kelly, it just heightens the need to get another centre back. Like if we're going in with Byrne, Kelly, Shaw, and a new centre back, and we've got those four, I'd be confident that we've got enough there to tick us over and to get the results that we need moving forward. If we lose one of them and we're going down to just the two, it throws question marks out there. So good point raised by Bradley with regard to that centre back position, and I think that's why, Chris, you put the new centre back there as the kind of the priority on your team sheet, mate.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really, really good point. With Jamal Lascelles currently out, Sven Botman currently out, we really can't afford to lose another centre back. No, I completely agree. And bringing in that right-sided centre back, or right-footed centre back, if we're going to be pedantic, I think it will be a real key addition. Because as I say, when Sven Botman comes back, when Jamal Lascelles comes back, which I think will be later, I think that'll be more February, March time of next year, perhaps. We need to just make sure that we've got options, because honestly, it gives me palpitations. I keep getting flashbacks of last season, where you're just constantly watching the game thinking, don't get injured, don't get injured, don't get injured, don't get a yellow card. We don't want another season like that. And let's be honest, Pete, it would be frustrating if we did end up like that, because mainly for the reason that we all kind of knew this was coming. We've all seen it coming. We know Sven Botman's been out. We know Jamal Lascelles has been out. We know that we're a little bit threadbare and that we're needing that one person in. So if we didn't get that person in, it would be rather frustrating. And I suppose it leads back to your question, Pete, at the very start when you were talking about does Paul Mitchell have to go and get this, this Mark Gay signing? It does lead you down that path where you kind of go, and this is arguably the most important one. Could we make do with Murphy and Alman on right wing? Yes, we could. Do we need to upgrade? Yes, we do. But at least we've got bodies there. Whereas for centre back, the odd injury, the odd suspension here or there, we may not actually have the bodies, which is even more concerning.
It definitely is concerning. And Jimmy's concerned, and welcome, Jimmy, another resident spanner. I don't trust anything regarding Wilson and injuries. Yeah. And to be fair, you made a fair point. I'm hoping, it's more hope that because it's only one game a week, it's only one game in which he won't get injured. And let's be honest, Isak starts. So it's not like he's going to be playing full 90s. He's going to be coming on and making an impact. So therefore, even more reason to keep him fit. But this is obviously why we've got Asula as a backup. But no, I think it's a more than valid point, Jimmy. And I hope you're well, Jimmy. Great to see you in the chat as ever. There are some other points at play as well. David Knight put us, at least we've got Pivas, the young Serbian midfielder, also can play centre back that comes in. I think he's going into the under 21s, but from what I saw on his video clips, I don't think it'll be long before he's being considered within the first team, because he did look strong in his performances. I'm not going to lie. I've got one question for you, Chris, and it's related to a link that I saw today, in fact, and it's related to the midfield situation, because we've mentioned the midfield about it being very, very strong. However, we've got this situation here where transfer.com had mentioned Newcastle could steal Conor Gallagher after the Atletico Madrid move collapsed. So they've talked about Newcastle waiting in the wings as a potential option for Conor Gallagher. But, we'll bring the squad back up again. If can we move us back to the side?
That's us, mate. Yeah, there we are. There we are.
Do we need another midfielder? I know obviously people have got their issues with Sean Longstaff, but do we need to go out there and spend a chunk of money on Conor Gallagher when we've got a stacked midfield? Is that?
Do you know what? It's a really good point, Pete, and I think it goes back to what we've said previously when we talked about the right player. I think if the right player becomes available, or that the right player is there to be had, I do believe they will get the deal done. Because let's be honest, Pete, if we were to sign Conor Gallagher this window, I think that puts Sean Longstaff on borrowed time. I really, really do. Not necessarily for this window, but it'll be like, right, let's try and move him on in January. Right, let's try and move him on in the summer, because I think we couldn't have, arguably, and people have already said in the chat, about certain players. Pivas got mentions, Alfie Harrison got mentions. We couldn't have a squad with like 9 central midfielders in there. It just wouldn't work. I don't even think I've mentioned Jay Turner Cook there as well. There's quite a few players I could mention that could feasibly play that position. And also, I think the reason that I wouldn't completely poo-poo that story and go no, it won't happen is I when you look at Conor Gallagher's stats, and when you look at it was well documented, wasn't it, last season, that Conor Gallagher was known as the pressing king. He was one of the best pressers in European football. Eddie Howe's team is all about pressing. So the link to Conor Gallagher doesn't surprise me. The fact that Newcastle have been linked to him, that Eddie Howe likes him, doesn't surprise me. The thing that I find intriguing is Chelsea spent a lot of money recently. They've been given a lot of big contracts out, and no doubt they will be wanting to do some business in order to kind of allay those PSR worries. Now, people say that they're not bothered about PSR, or they don't care. I'm sure to a degree that they will. And selling homegrown talent, as we know, brings a pure profit. Now, what I would say is, towards the end of the window, if they haven't managed to get rid of Trevor Chalobah, if they haven't managed to get rid of Armando Broja, if Newcastle were to go in with a cheeky offer of, say, 25-30 million and went, we'll take Conor Gallagher, would they would Newcastle fans turn up their nose to sign a reasonably priced Conor Gallagher? I'm not saying let's go and put 50 million on him. I'm not saying that, because you're right, on the scale of things, we probably don't need Conor Gallagher. But if the fee was right, if the moment was right, I would test the water, particularly knowing that Chelsea are desperate to get rid. It's another Mason Mount situation. They were desperate to get rid of Mason Mount. They're desperate to get rid of Trevor Chalobah. And they thought that they were getting rid of Conor Gallagher to Atletico Madrid, and apparently that's not happening now. So why not back them into a corner with 48 hours to go with the window and go, is 25-30 million, what do you think of that? And if you're getting him for a decent price and he wants the move, why not? Maybe his stance on Newcastle will have changed. I know previously it was reported he wasn't interested in Newcastle and he didn't want to move up north. But would his stance have changed, given that he's so publicly been, cast aside to Atletico Madrid, and then it's not happened. Will he want to go back with his tail between his legs to Chelsea? I'm not so sure.
Very good point. Very interesting and a real kind of astute type of sort of transfer dealings that you kind of would expect from Paul Mitchell, to be fair. So that would be a fair point. It'd be interesting to see that potential deal take place and happen. One deal that won't be happening, unfortunately, I have seen it break, is Oscar Bob, because Oscar Bob has apparently broke his leg. It has been on across all Man City reports. Apparently he's been seen in crutches and he's going to be out for a long while. A huge blow to Man City. And will that mean that Man City go into the market to get another winger? Because he's likely to be out at least 3 or 4 months now. Probably won't see him until the end of October, November.
When did that break, Pete? Was that today?
Whilst we're on in the last 15, 20 minutes to the Man City's accounts, and LB had been had kind of touched on it. They're all absolutely gutted, and rightly so. Because I'm
just thinking, Pete. The reason I asked the question is yesterday there was unfounded reports, wasn't there, that Man City agreed to deal with Liverpool for Luis Diaz, and it came out of nowhere, completely left field, and I'm just wondering, has this news eked out, and maybe was there a little bit of substance? I mean, I'm assuming that maybe anyone can correct me on this, and apologies if I'm completely wrong, but I imagine he didn't break his leg an hour ago. I imagine they've known about it for a little while, and have Man City agently contacted Liverpool and gone, listen, we need to go and get a new winger, go and get Luis Diaz. I don't know. When I saw the story yesterday, it did shock me a little bit. I know it was played down quite quickly by Fab Romano, but is that Man City going, whoa? We haven't agreed anything yet, but now that news is through, that story doesn't surprise me as much, is what I mean.
Quite possibly. I'd be looking at other wingers if I was Man City than Diaz. But yeah, it definitely has some substance to it. And it'll be interesting to see the next few days whether there are some more links that come back to that. Because I'll be honest, since that broke and the likes of Ben Jacobs and others have kind of shot it down, it has gone very, very quiet. So there hasn't been any more talk about Luis Diaz at that point. So could well ramp up again. For sure. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Couple of questions. I tell you what I want to do before we do the questions. I wanted to come back to what we talked about before about the Paul Mitchell question that I asked you earlier, and some of the responses on top of what you'd mentioned as well. I'd come in and Foxy put, if Mitchell walks away from the Gay deal, then he gets more credit for me. Gay is not a superstar or generational. Decent player, but an overpriced player, and that's simple. And overpriced is not necessarily a negative thing. We've said the fact that he's got 20% extra that Chelsea will take away from that deal means that Palace will have had to hold a higher price for him, so they get a decent price. I think Palace want around 50 million to recoup from that deal, and I think 65 million all in, or 60 million deal works around to close to that 50 million mark. I think 65 million deal almost kind of like gets that sort of 50 million price, which I think is what they value him at. If it wasn't for that 20%, I think we'd have got him at 50 million personally. So he is overpriced, but he's overpriced for a reason. But fair points there from Foxy. Andy Ford said, no blame on Mitchell whatsoever. If Palace want bonkers money for an average player, then it's not his problem. I think the bigger issue is if we overpay for Gay, that reflects worse on Mitchell.
That's another way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's not his fault. That 20% is hanging over his head as well. Silence is lovely. Great to have you on the channel as well. Not seen you before. Mitchell will only ultimately be judged by the players he does sign for us and how they perform. I'd rather he not overpay for players. It's fine to walk away if the deal is not right for us. And Ali also says there's no shame in walking away as well. Will also mentions if it fails, it will make a statement that Paul Mitchell is understanding that NUFC will not get mugged and end up like Manure and PSG having to overpay and will get something else. So some interesting points there from different people. Deutschmag, Mitchell started just before the window opened. It's arguable he shouldn't be judged properly until next summer. I think that's a fair point as well. So some good, fair points being raised there on the Mitchell situation. And Silence is a lovely comeback, as it said. Can't wait to see my team mow down any Premier League team this season. Cannot wait for Saturday. And look, we agree with you on the back of that. So this is lovely. First time we've seen you in the chat, but great to have you in there. Great points and comments. And hopefully it's not the last time we see you in the chat.
Absolutely.
Do you want a couple of questions before we sponsor it and out?
Yeah, let's do it, mate. Let's do it. I'll have a little look now at some questions that we got from earlier. And again, apologies for anyone who saw that earlier. We did have loads of great questions for Ben. Obviously, me and people try and give our opinion or answer, but you know, Ben had to shoot off, unfortunately. Craig Lee come in with a funny comment. I quite like this. I love this genre, but the music is awful. Craig, I've got to admit, Pete, I don't know about you. I love the music. I do. I love it.
Love the goosebumps. Love the goosebumps.
Love the love. The love. Yeah,
definitely. Everybody's different. Though. Everybody's different.
Everyone is different. Yeah, you're right. Mikey P asked a very good question, Pete, and he's referring to Gay when he asked this question. Why did we start with such a low bid? Knowing what the ballpark was, Pete, because we've heard, haven't we? It was like 48 million. Like, is that a dangerous thing to do? And the reason I think Mikey's asking this is that, you know, because we're now at the third bid, which has now officially been rejected, you know, no one's to say that it's off or nothing's going to happen. But when you go in with such a low bid, off the back of that Euros, do you think the club or Paul Mitchell or, you know, anybody regrets going into it so low, given that we've all this time's passed and we're still at that point where we're not quite where we need to be?
I didn't understand it personally. The remit of the bid was always 65 million to get Gay out the club. I understand that they didn't go there straight to the high figure straight away. I think there was reported that it was 40 plus add-ons and then 50 plus add-ons. So they've jumped 10 million at that point. They've then gone to 55 plus add-ons to get it to 60. Yeah, it just seems a bit strange that they started so low. They obviously have a value of what they value him. But I think whether Newcastle have kind of overseen or overthought the situation with regards to his 20% sell-on. I do think that their initial bids would have been genuine bids and absolutely fine had he not had that 20% sell-on. But with that, Palace want a fee. They want to recruit 50 million from him. It's pure and simple. They want to recruit 50 million from him because 50 million is his value. If anyone asked me beforehand, I'd have said 50 million is his value, no doubt about it. But we're paying the extra because Chelsea are getting a piece of the pie, and that's the frustrating thing about it. They'll get what, anywhere between 8 and 11 million, 11, 12 million of whatever transfer fee that they get for him. That's the issue that we've got right now, and so that's the frustrating thing.
No, I agree, mate. I agree. I'm trying to decide which one to go to next. So Steve asked this question. This was for Ben, but I feel like we can give a go with it for you, Steve. So he says, which right centre back do you think will sign once the right centre back is signed? Unless there's any outgoings, will that be Newcastle done in the transfer window? What do you think on that, Pete? If let's fast forward a week. Southampton game's gone. Next week, obviously being a big week, we sign a right centre back. One, I want to know, do you think it'll be Mark Gay? And two, if it is Mark Gay, do you think we go all in for the right winger, or do you think potentially that's us done?
Yeah, I do think it'll be Mark Gay. I do think we're so close to potentially finding an agreement. I don't think Newcastle will just walk away. And Ben confirmed it tonight. He said Newcastle, even though they said it was a take it or leave it offer, they're still at the table. And until they walk away, they're still at the table because they value the player and they want to make that deal. They want to get Gay into the club. Lots of people are saying about Malik Chow, and we talked about him pretty much all summer. Doesn't seem like that's even a thing now. Could well revisit itself, but at this moment in time, it's all about Mark Gay, and I do think they'll get that deal done. Second point, will that be the end of the window? No. I fully expect Newcastle United to sign a right centre-back and a right winger, regardless of whether Miggy stays or goes, before the window is done. I fully expect it. What about you, Chris? What about you?
No, to be fair, Pete, I'm saying I hope you're right. I agree with what you're saying. I do think we will sign a right centre back and a right winger. I do. If you were to put me on behind me back now, Pete, I do think it will be Mark Gay. I think there's a possibility it might not be Mark Gay. I'm more confident on the fact that I think we'll bring in a right centre back and a right winger, whether that be a permanent deal, a loan. I am confident we will fill those two positions. I'm slightly less confident, or pinning. Do you know what? I always think of these expressions and I can't think of what I'm trying to say. I'm less confident that I would say it's definitely going to be Mark Gay, but I am confident that we bring in a right centre back and a right winger. Me personally, I think that's what we'll do, and I think that's what's needed. I mean, we looked at the squad earlier, didn't we? Clearly, that's what we're after. That is what we need. So I hope that's the case, and I hope that's what we do. But I'm remaining positive, Pete. I want to say I am remaining positive. Mig S, I'll just read this out. Mig S says, Tune, I'm all for the surprise name from nowhere for right wing. Totally on board with that. I think that'd be really exciting. And surely we have options we're exploring. I agree, mate. I think we do have. I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket for Madueke. I know he's been strongly linked. He's probably been the most strongly linked player, actually, this window, if you look at it over the course of the window. But I don't think it's a given that we're going to be getting Madueke. This is a good one from George. Oh, sorry, go on, Pete.
No, I was going to say, I'm the same. I'm super excited. I said it to someone the other day. I can't remember who I said it to. I said, I'm super excited at the thought that actually we haven't got a direct link there, and it could be anybody. It could be anybody, someone that we've not even talked about. That's the exciting thing, that I do think a right wing's coming in, but we don't know who it is. That's the great thing about it.
Yeah, no, it is. You're right. Let's see. Dorch Mag, he comes with one, and he says, any chance for Saudi being back in for Miggy? Miggy might be interested now that MLS is not an option. Do you think that is a possibility? I know we discussed it briefly on the chat today, didn't we, Pete? Saying that once that MLS window shuts, and if rumours are to be believed, Miggy, for some people, the wages were a bit of an issue for Miggy's move to the MLS. If Saudi were to come back in and he got that astronomical offer of wages, do you think it's something he consider now, or do you think it's off the table?
I think he's going to have to consider it. I do think there'll be a little bit of pressure applied to Miguel Almiron between now and the end of the window to take that deal, because as far as we're aware, I think there is still Saudi interest in Miguel Almiron, and I think if they feel that they can get him over there, I do think they'll try and get the deal done. This is why I don't think this Miguel Almiron situation's over. Nobody in the Premier League are going to pay what Newcastle want for him, and it seems to be around the 15 to 20 million mark that they want for him, with 2 years left on his deal. So I do think that there's a possibility of getting that deal done, but the fact that Charlotte didn't get that deal, Charlotte FC didn't get that deal done, that will make it clear that MLS is not an option right now. He's going to have to go there on a free transfer. And Newcastle United are not going to want him sitting there for 2 years before he leaves on a free transfer. I think the best way around it will be is if he goes to Saudi, gets a huge paycheck for a couple of years, and then leaves Saudi on a free transfer, and then can go and play in MLS and have a pick of the clubs of what he wants. That's the ideal route.
Yeah.
What about you?
I hope that the door's still open. I'm just not sure that Miggy would walk through it. That's just how I feel on it. I think there was an ample opportunity for him to go last season, and maybe because we've seen in recent times people jump at the opportunity to move to Saudi. I know there's the odd player here and there who hasn't, but we saw the likes of Ruben Neves go over there, Koulibaly. The list is endless, because the wages on offer are so good. But perhaps Miguel Almiron, still sees himself in Europe or in America. I think they're the two places he'd like to be. But here's one back at you, Pete. If we go and sign a big right winger, who it's evident is going to be the number one right winger, does that push Miggy further out the door in the Eddie could go to him, listen, your third choice now, there's the Saudi offer right there. You either stay at Newcastle and your third choice, and you might get the odd appearance, or we'll put you in now and again. He wouldn't word it like that, obviously, but if he said your options are going to be a little bit limited, do you think that would persuade him more to go towards the door, or do you think that the fact that we've only got two right wingers at the moment, in out and out right wingers, in Jacob Murphy and Miggy Almiron, I'm thinking, well, you haven't signed a replacement, so I might just try and hedge my bets. Do you think that would influence it, Pete?
I think a right winger coming in will force the move. He'll become third choice, and I'm adamant now. And I said it to you and Ben when Ben was on, and I've said it to you and Daz previously. Since that deal with Saudi in January didn't go through, he has been made second choice. It's as if to say you didn't take the deal, so now you're gonna have to play second fiddle because we actually want to move you on. And Newcastle have done it respectfully, but they've done it progressively. So he has barely started any games since that point. He started the odd friendly here and there, but he's not part of the starting lineup. He is second fiddle. Another right winger comes in, he goes to third. And at that point, he isn't going to get many minutes. He isn't. And I think at that point, if a right winger comes in, Eddie Howe will be having the conversation, say, you're not really going to play much under me this season. You're probably best finding a move elsewhere and giving him the option to move on, to play regular football. When you've got huge amounts of money and the chance to play week in, week out at whatever club it is in Saudi, you're probably going to take it because he's getting on now, and Paraguay are getting some good young players coming through. He's not a guarantee for his national team. And so therefore, is he going to think about that as he's getting older? I think there is a decision to make for sure. I do genuinely think that.
Yeah. Quick one, Pete. I feel like you may have already answered this one, but I want to throw it out there from Paul McCoy. I hope I'm saying that right, Paul. Apologies if I'm not. Is Malik Chow done completely for you?
I'd heard somewhere that Malik Chow wants to stay at AC Milan. Can't remember where I heard it. Read it the other day. Apparently, Malik Chow wants to stay at AC Milan, and I don't blame him. I think what I read is that he wants to play Champions League football, and obviously he wants to stay in Milan. So, reading that, you'd assume, it is done. And the fact that we were so interested in him to the point where we'd apparently put a couple of bids in. And didn't get it over the line. And then we've quite obviously gone in a different direction to Mark Gay. We'll probably tell him he's not necessarily someone that we're targeting now. Now, it could change. It could change. And yeah, David Cook put there, Chow reported as not interested. I'd read something similar that he wanted to stay at AC Milan. So from that, I'm saying, it probably is done. And we are looking in a different situation. And this may be why we're now linked to another centre-back, and we talked about him earlier, in Logan Costa. This might be why he might be coming to the forefront now as an option. Or is it all a tactic the tactic of Joachim Andersen potentially leaving to hurry up Newcastle with their deal? Is it the case that we're looking at Logan Costa or going back to Malik Chow as a way of saying to Palace, well, we've got other options here, take it or leave it. You're not going to get that same fee again that we've offered you 60 million. Is it kind of that brinkmanship at the moment? Is that what's going on right now? Who knows? I'm sure we'll find out over the next few days. But I don't think we go back in for Malik Chow. What about you?
I'd say never, but it looks increasingly unlikely, is what I'd say. And it appears, the fact that we keep bidding for Mark Gay every few days, that would tell me that they're going all in on Mark Gay. So it looks unlikely. And maybe what you've said, Pete, maybe Malik Chow's representatives have gone, no, he doesn't want to go. Maybe we've explored that and we've been told that behind the scenes, and that's why we've gone, right, Mark Gay all in. Not saying Malik Chow was first choice, by the way, just purely pointing out the fact that, inquiries may have been made and then the club decided Mark Gay is the number one target. Maybe that's what's happened. Who knows? So I wouldn't say a complete no, but it looks unlikely, I would say. Ben, sorry, not Ben. Toon Talk says, and I'm going to use the last part of this question, Toon Talk, because we've already touched on that to a degree. Do you think another team try and hijack the Gahey deal at any point, Pete? Have you got any concerns over that?
Nope.
No.
I think the fees are too high for a lot of other clubs. So I don't think they come in and steal the deal. I just don't.
No. I think we'd have heard names by now, wouldn't we? You'd think. If they were going to.
Yeah, I do.
Names of other clubs. Yeah. So hopefully that puts you at ease, Toon Talk.
Let's do one more.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got two more. One comment.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
And then this question. Yeah. So Johnny Dean says, guys, do you think we'll wait until we have a potential loan deal lined up for a right winger before we bid any higher? Which is a good question from Johnny.
I think they'll be working simultaneously to get those deals done. We've only got 2.5 weeks left, so we have to work quickly. But I think the priority will be on getting the centre-back deal sorted. I feel that Newcastle already know who they want for right wing. I think they've already got their targets. I think there's just a waiting game. I think they want the Gay deal done first, and then they'll go all out for the right winger, and hopefully move on a few other players to kind of free up some wages. Because I think that'll be the key. If we get someone on loan, it'll be, can we cover the wages for a season? It will likely be a loan with an obligation, so we won't necessarily have to worry about the fee, but we'll have to worry about the wages. And we've still got a lot of wages on our wage bill that we need to shift. Ryan Fraser, Target, Miggy, there's just three, potentially Trippier. You've got Harrison Ashby, who's potentially going out on loan. There's a few people there. Martin Dubravka, he'll be on decent wages. So there's all those players that I've just mentioned that actually getting those wages off the bill can mean that those wages can be put into maybe a loan with an obligation to buy. It's not necessarily always about the fee. It's sometimes about the wage bill and making sure that works. So I think that'll be something that they'll be considering for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we all as fans sometimes we have our blinkers on, don't we? And we think, everyone's in a room and they're all talking about Mark Gay, and someone's going, "Oh, what about the right winger?" And they're like, "No, shush, we're doing Mark Gay, stop it." I'm sure that's not the case. Like, I'm sure there's many fingers in many pies. So I'm sure they'll be spinning a lot of plates at the moment. But I know as a fan base, we do think, oh, they're just trying to get the Mark Gay deal done. That's it. So there is the temptation to think that. But fingers crossed that they'll be looking at many other people as well. And then the last thing I wanted to say, Pete, which was from Tom Dixon, and he gives us a timely reminder to say that Newcastle United are ball 15 in tonight's Carabao Cup second draw. So thank you for that, Tom. The draw will take place after the Leeds-Middlesbrough game, which is around 10 p.m. this evening. So just in case anyone had forgotten or wasn't aware of it, yeah, Carabao Cup second round draw this evening, and let's hope we can get Sunderland, Pete. Oh no, wait, that won't be happening, will it?
I knew that was coming. I knew it.
Yeah.
You said that. Was it 2-0 against Preston?
Yes.
It's not for
Sword
everybody.
by the mighty Preston. Yeah, but never mind. There's always next year.
Maybe we get Preston and we knock them out. Who knows, eh?
Hey, we could do Sunderland a favour. Do the job that they couldn't do. Maybe. I wouldn't mind Preston. I wouldn't
Tell you
mind.
what I do want is let's have an easier route than we did last season.
God, yeah.
Man City, Man United, Chelsea. Let's have an easier route to the final. Let's have an easier 3 or 4, 5 game run with the amount of bad draws that we had last season. I think we're deserving a more positive one across the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup this season. So fingers crossed, we get that good. We get that good run. 100%. Hopefully all is sorted. But that's it for the questions. Just want to say thanks to our sponsor, Manscaped.
Yes. So we wanted to do a little thank you to Manscaped. Now you'll have to bear with me, everybody, because we have a new tab. So I noticed when I changed the brand in the background that this tab came up. So I was like, oh, well, that gives me ample opportunity to mention our sponsors, Manscaped. And also, you'll notice, Pete, I did do it before, and it kind of interrupted our segue because that just automatically pops up when you change it. So apologies for that. But yeah. So our new sponsor, well, I say new sponsor, we've been with Manscaped for a few months now, haven't we?
Yeah.
So the relationship continues strong. But yeah, Manscaped, do you want your grooming routine to be a one and done deal? Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6, introducing the Beard and Balls Bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedge Trimmer. A trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code LOADED20, as you will all know, and I'm going to flash that up on the screen at the bottom. So again, make sure you get that in there. So it's LOADED20 when you go to manscaped.com. And it's 20% off and free shipping when you use that code at manscaped.com for the premium grooming experience. Trust Manscaped. Now, I also wanted to share a few different pictures with you. Now, one I've literally just loaded up as well. So this is what I was just talking about, the Beard and Balls Bundle. So first up, your balls' new best friend, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Say goodbye to the endless passes. This trimmer gets it right first time, cutting through the bushiest of bushes effortlessly while being gentle on the skin and your delicate places. With 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, you can choose between a precise trim or a smooth finish. And did I mention it's waterproof? Yes, you can trim in the shower and avoid making a mess everywhere. Perfect for those of us who appreciate efficiency. And we appreciate efficiency, don't we, Pete? We do. We absolutely
of course.
do. Yeah. Next, let's talk about the Beard Hedger. Whether you're going for a neat stubble or a full-on lumberjack look, this trimmer has you covered, featuring a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade and 20 length options. You can achieve any style you want with just a twist of the zoom wheel. Just like the lawnmower, the Beard Hedger is also waterproof. You can handle your beard grooming right in the sink or shower without worrying about water damage. With up to 60 minutes of runtime and an LED charge indicator, you'll never be caught mid-trim with a dead battery. The Lawnmower 5.0 ensures you're always looking your best below the waist, while the Beard Hedger takes care of everything above. So yeah, that's the Beard and Balls Bundle. And as I've mentioned before, you know, Manscaped do a lot of stuff. You know, we've got the Palooza sheds, which is the package there. We've got, you know, loads and loads of stuff on there. Pete, funnily enough, we've got that bundle, haven't we? That one rings a bell. We've got that one with the lovely boxies. We were talking about those boxies the other day. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff that you can get on Manscaped. So like I say, you'll see along the bottom there, you get 20% off when you go on the Manscaped website, as long as you put in the promo code LOADED20. So make sure you do that and look after your balls, boys. That's what I'd say. Look after those balls. But yeah, I think that's our promotion of Manscaped there. But yeah, there we go. And also, just what I wanted to add, just before we move on, I also wanted to say, because you know, I love bringing this up here. I absolutely adore it, don't I? It's my favorite button. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. And if you haven't already liked the show, take a moment now. Give the show a like. It helps us with the algorithms, and it means that we spread the loaded message far and wide. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. We're doing very, very well now, Pete. I think we're on 22k now. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, we did. We hit the 22k mark, just over. Thank you everyone for subscribing to the channel, and make sure you hit those likes. We had over 500 in the chat tonight, so make sure that you are clicking the likes. Put your comments in after you've watched the show. If you're watching it on Watchback, let us know what you think about the show. Any points that we've mentioned, any points that you would like to mention, drop them in the comments as well. And make sure you hit the notification bell. That lets you know that there's a show coming. So when we have our show tomorrow night, away days, the big match preview is back with the match day vlogs of Southampton. They're coming to join us to talk all things Premier League football. So make sure you come and join that. The notification bell will go off to remind you that there's a show coming. To do that, and make sure you don't forget. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again to Ben Jacobs coming and joining us tonight, talking all things Newcastle United. We'll be back for more, and we'll be back with any breaking news as well, as and when it breaks. Hopefully we get some Mark Gay news before the weekend is out, and hopefully we'll be I put this on earlier, but
did you put that on? Yeah, I didn't read it. I haven't even seen it.
Times have changed. Betsy, you're right. Brandon Blaze is no more. It's beard and balls.
Beard and balls.
That is the new phrase that I'm moving.
Who's beard and who's balls then?
I think it should be in order of where we are right now. So, so I'll definitely be there. I don't think you've got a beard, have you? So
at the moment, I don't have a beard. So technically, I've answered my own question there. Yeah. So I'll just be the balls. That's fine.
I'll definitely take the beard on that one. Brilliant stuff. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Sorry if we didn't get to your questions, particularly when Ben was on. We apologize. We had so many stars, but we love the questions, the comments, the community, everything that you guys bring to this show is fantastic. And we are back tomorrow, 6:30. Make sure you're there. Check the tweets out. Make sure you're following us on all the platforms on social media. But we're out. Huge thanks to you all for tuning in tonight. How do you want to see us out tonight, Chris?
Oh, we'll do a how. We haven't done a how, have we? We can do a big Ezzy. Going to get that transfer deal over the line.
Well, Chris said it. How'd you like that, people?
Drink it, like weed and tell me if you like